This is Nathan Trewartha. He is an art director for Epic Games and works currently on Fortnite Creative. Nathan, thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. We just want to hear all about your journey, kind of how you went through high school, through post-secondary education, and on to the current job you are. So I know a lot of us um, in high school, we're trying to figure out what we want to do after high school. A lot of people go to university. A lot of people just kind of jump right into jobs. Uh, and education is important. And so, what steps did you take? Did you go right into university? Did you go on into a job directly, or what was your steps kind of out of high school into the next education experience?
Okay, so first of all, let me just say elementary and high school, I was always drawing. Like I remember getting in trouble in elementary school for drawing during class when I shouldn't have been drawing, right? So I was always doing art, painting, drawing on the side when I was bored. Anyways, so with that background, after high school, I actually went right into university. Um, and I decided that because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know how I could make money doing art. And so I went the university route. I went to BYU, and through different vectors, I ended up in an illustration program at BYU because I determined that I liked doing art, and I saw that they had an art degree. So I kind of combined the two interests and what was available at BYU. And so I got a BFA from, which is a Bachelor of Fine Arts with an emphasis in illustration from BYU. After BYU, I didn't quite feel ready. I didn't feel like I had a good enough portfolio. And I also liked options. And I decided to get an MFA, a Master's of Fine Arts. So I actually went to Utah State. I applied there. I got in. I got a MFA from Utah State. And so that was kind of my education background. And with that MFA, the option that it provided was with an MFA, I could teach or be a professor or teach at a university level. So after all of that education, I ended up getting my first job in the industry, which was at a place called Glyphics.
Glyphics, okay.
They were in Utah County, and they were not making games, but what they were doing was they were creating characters for games. And they were about to do a half hour of animation. It was this big contract that they got, and which is why they needed people to help them because they were a small shop. And they were going to do a half hour of animation for a video game that was based on a Green Army Man game, kind of from the Toy Story era.
I love that. Yes.
So anyway, so it was a Green Army Man game. I went in and I got hired without a ton of game production experience, because back then there wasn't a lot of people who had the experience because it was kind of newer. And so on the job, I did a lot of training. Like I learned how to texture map, which is painting 3D assets. I learned how to animate. I actually helped with the animation and actually did animation with some software. It was actually, I think it was Max at the time. And so that was kind of my introduction into making art for games. And it was through cinematics or through doing animation. So
Well, I absolutely love that.
yeah, so we take characters and we built them, then we rigged them, we textured them, painted them, then we animated them, and then we lit them. So I had to do lighting as well. So there was a lot of hats that I had to wear. We were a small shop, so I was able to do a lot of different things and learn a lot of different things at once, right? So that was kind of my introduction to the industry.
That is really cool. And so you're saying, so you took all of these, you were drawing all through elementary school and high school, and that's just what you love to do. You love to draw. But as you got into something, you ended up learning a ton of different talents and different things that you probably didn't learn. Maybe you were a little bit exposed to in university, and maybe a little bit, but probably not a ton, at least to the extent that you would use it for the job. Does that sound right?
That's exactly right. My training and all the things that I had done up to that point was all art, traditional art. So it was all like, how do I paint in oils? How do I draw the
Oh,
figure? How do I do an illustration? Like if I got an illustration job and had to do like a book cover or a story in a magazine or something, all of my training was about art and about the principles of art, how to make something look good, how to have a focal point, how to have rhythm and balance in a piece of artwork. And then my first job, take all of that experience from school and all the drawing I did when I was a kid and plug me into like use 3D software, learn how to do stuff while you're trying to make something, and learn how to animate, which I wasn't an animator. Learn how to animate. So I just kind of had to got put in the fire, as it were, figure out this stuff and help us because we have a contract and we got to get this stuff done. So it was a great and wonderful experience to wear a lot of different hats, do a lot of fun, exciting things, not just do one thing, but do a lot of things. And that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's cool that you went from like oils and other like pieces of paper type of art to then to the digital art, which yes, there's the art principles, I'm sure, that are very similar across the board. But the fact that then you kind of had to learn how to draw, I don't know, maybe on like a Wacom tablet or something like
Yes.
that,
Yep.
in order to get that digitally. And then 3D. And I've done some 3D art and animation and modeling a little bit myself. And so I get some of the phrases that you're saying here with textures or anything like that and the mapping and all that. And it's very difficult. There's a lot that goes into one single piece of animation. So I think that's really cool that you're able to learn that just on the job, with the experiences that you learned from university. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. So just to kind of take you from like where I went from my first job to kind of where I'm at now. So that first job, Glyphix, we finished that 30-minute animation. We took the money, that the profits that we got from that animation, and we said, maybe we need to become a game studio. And we had hired several people from BYU's animation program at this point. And so we started making our own like ideas for what we would make for a game. We came up with an idea for the background of the story. We came up for an idea for the kind of the universe of the story and what basic ideas we wanted the story to be. And we came up with a sci-fi game. And then we started pitching it around and we got a publisher, crazy enough, which doesn't happen very often for a small studio to be able to get this.
Yeah.
And we made a game called Advent Rising at this company called Glyphix. Well, at the end of that production, several of us had become friends through making this game, and it took like 3 to 5 years to do.
Wow.
At the end of that, we had become such good friends. We were like, you know what? We kind of want to start our own company. So a big block of us from BYU, former BYU students, took off from that company and created our own company with the intent of making games and making a game studio. And we called the company Chair Entertainment. And
Really?
started the company down in downtown Provo. And we started this company, Chair Entertainment, and we started trying to make our own games. So we started the process all over again.
Yeah,
What game do we
seriously.
want to make? Let's make a new game. What are we going to make? And we were like 7 guys. So we were very bold. We had big, goals, big ideas of what we wanted to do. And I think our vision was huge. We wanted to do what's called a first-person shooter at the time, which is usually like at least 60 people, employees, to be able to make this kind of game. And we were
Yeah.
people, so
Yeah,
we
seriously.
pretty audacious goals. But that's what we shot for. We shot for the stars. And I think a little bit of naivety on our side helped us in a way, because if you don't have the big goals, you don't shoot for them. But if you know what the obstacles are, maybe you don't shoot for it. So a little bit of that not knowing helped us shoot for the big things. As we shot for these big things and shopped it around, we weren't getting publishers. The reason why is because we were so small. Companies don't want to spend tons of money on a small group of people who they're not sure can pull it off. They were very interested in our ideas and very excited about our ideas. They just weren't sure if we could pull it off. So we said, well, let's start smaller. Let's bring it in. Let's make it something smaller. So we came up with a different game, which was a side scroller game, which was called Undertone. It was like I don't know if you remember this game, but it was based on a game called Geometry Wars. And you had the ability to shoot in 360 around your character. And we said, let's combine that with like a Battlefront type game where you have control points and you're trying to control different areas of the map. And so we had this little swimmer guy under the water that could shoot in 360 around him. And we had different units that you could use to make this Battlefield type game in a side scroller type interaction. And so we made Undertow as a small game. And then we moved on to another side scroller, which was called Shadow Complex. As we made this game Shadow Complex, it was based on a Metroid style game from Nintendo or a Castlevania type game from Nintendo. So we combined those two ideas together to make the Shadow Complex game. As we were making that, we attracted the eye of Epic Games, who later purchased our company because they were so impressed by what we were doing with Shadow Complex.
And you still only had 7 people working together at this point, right?
Yeah.
Oh my word, that's incredible.
7 people. So they purchased our company because they liked what we were doing with their engine. We were actually using the Unreal Engine at the time. And they were excited about what we were doing with the engine because we were pushing the engine in different ways than what they were doing with the engine. So at the time, they were making games like Gears of War. And so Shadow Complex was like totally different than this like third-person shooter Gears of War, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And so that's why they were attracted to us, because of the art quality and the game quality that we were making. So during the production of Shadow Complex, Epic bought us. Now we're an Epic studio. We're still called Cherry Entertainment, but we're owned by Epic Games. And with their professional experience, they helped us finish Shadow Complex to a more polished game, which really helped us a lot. Since that time, I've been a part of Epic Games. So with Epic Games, I've made Shadow Complex. We also went on to make Infinity Blade trilogies. Epic came to us one day and they said, we have been meeting with Apple, and there's this new thing called the iPhone.
Yeah.
And it's now time that we want to try to make games for iPhones. And Apple really is trying to encourage us as Epic to make games for the iPhone. And so Epic turned around and said, well, we have this company out in Utah who is pushing our technology in different ways. And we think they'd be the perfect team to try to make a game for the iPhone. And so what we came up with was Infinity Blade and the Infinity Blade trilogy, right? And so some of our guys were able to go out and get on stage with Apple and present Infinity Blade to everybody at the time. And it was a huge success for our company. And so we did 3 of those games, Infinity Blade 1, 2, and 3. Since that time, our team has worked on different projects, but in the last year, they took our team and they folded us back into the main goals of the main company. And in the last year, I joined the Fortnite Battle Royale team and worked on Fortnite Battle Royale in the environment section of the company and learned all about their art directing. And I was actually art directing, helping with outsourcing teams, making art, giving them feedback, making sure they do things according to our quality standards, making sure the art looks really awesome and cool, making sure that it's done in a certain way that meets all of our standards of performance and everything. And then in the last year, I moved from the Battle Royale team to the Fortnite creative team, which is where I'm at now, doing art direction, basically in the same way that I was for Battle Royale, but in a different way because of what creative does or what creative is, which is the way I like to explain it is it's basically like the Minecraft version of Fortnite. In other words, it allows the player or the person working with creative to build their own games, their own experiences with stuff that we provide them.
So you're the one that is responsible for the ability to create things such as death runs or those mazes or all sorts of things that all the Fortnite creators do these days.
Yes.
You've been behind the scenes and working with things like that because
Yeah.
that's all in creative, right?
Yeah, and of course there's more people than just me, but we sit in meetings and we talk about what should we do next, what are creators wanting, we're doing everything we can to provide the creators who work in Fortnite Creative what they want. And we're trying to listen to what they're wanting, and then we make decisions and prioritize, and then try to make those things happen in a timely manner as much as possible.
Absolutely. And I would love to hear some of the processes from maybe some of the past projects you work on, anything that you could say, like what goes into making um, the environment, or how do you get, or where does the idea come from, or what are some processes behind some of those different things?
So, I mean, it depends on what you're talking about. Depends on which game you're talking about. If we're talking about Fortnite, or if we're talking about a previous game that I've worked on, all things start with an idea. So, I mean, it really starts with a brainstorming session and coming up with what could we do. And when it comes to games, it's almost feels limitless, right? Because you can do a lot of things. And so most environments or assets that go into games start with a brainstorming session where you just come up with ideas. Then the next phase is to try to visualize it. And it's a job of a concept artist to then take those brainstormed ideas and then give a visual look to it. So he does a painting, he does something that looks like the environment that we're talking about. And those interpretations of what that idea is can be done in many different ways. And so he'll do many different versions. Sometimes he'll start with thumbnails, little tiny little drawings or little paintings, and then we'll pick which of those tiny little ideas is good, because we don't want to spend too much time on all the little ideas. And then we move forward ideas that we think are promising, and then we'll do more detailed, more time-consuming paintings from there. And then we'll give feedback, ask for changes, and we'll try to polish that idea to a finished concept art piece that we then turn around and say, okay, here's our concept art piece. What assets would we actually want to build that would help us to hit the look of that concept art? And then we might take pieces out of the concept art and concept some of those pieces to a finished state, and then turn that over to another artist to then build into 3D, and then to texture and paint, and then to get into the game and light and make sure it looks all great. And it's a huge, long process just for simple little assets to go into the game, and a lot of revisions.
Yeah, I'm sure. Even like one building on the Fortnite map would take a long time, I'm sure, just to build the one building, to get it all lighted and all concepted and everything. And I'm curious, the way you kind of said some of that made me think that you don't do a lot of actual drawing these days. Is that correct? Or are you still a big artist, or are you more of a manager of that?
Yeah, so currently I don't actually do a lot of drawing or painting or actual creation of actual art pieces anymore. Now I do a more directorial role where I'm giving feedback to other artists on what we want. And so I'm helping to decide what actually do we want? What actually do we want to put in the game? And then I'm also helping give feedback of what changes I want to actual art to then get to the final product that we want to put into the game.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense.
So it's a lot of decisions and a lot of telling other people what to do.
Exactly. And then I'm sure you give a lot of feedback on the concept art. You say, we like this or this, and you kind of direct it that way. I love that. I love that. What kind of advice would you give to some students who are either artists themselves, not professionally or anything, but they're just like you were in elementary school and in high school, just artists? What advice would you give to them that maybe kind of want to follow in your footsteps?
Okay. So what I would say is draw, draw, draw. Draw all the time. Just draw all the time. Like sketchbooks, get out a sketchbook and draw things you see, draw things you like, find other artists that you like and draw what they draw. Draw all the time, because that skill, even though maybe you want to do games and maybe you want to do art in the computer, you're still going to need that actual hand-eye coordination and be able to see things in an artist's eye, see differences of color, see shapes. You've got to get those technical skills down. You can't just jump in and think you're going to know it all, because there's a ton of foundational art skills that you're going to need. So draw, 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 draw. The second thing I would say is that people who get hired to make art for games, are not hired because of their educational background. We don't really care if you went to BYU, if you went to Utah State. We don't care if you have a master's or a bachelor's degree. The reason why is because all we care about is if you have a really good portfolio. And a portfolio is a collection of art that you have actually created. And so if you have a really awesome portfolio, we will most likely going to hire you, especially if your portfolio is full of things that we are going to hire you for. So if you're going to be a 3D modeler, we want to see 3D models that you actually created and how you solve problems in 3D. If you're going to be a 3D modeling painter, we want to see how you painted something and see your portfolio full of that. Okay, that said, you get hired because of your portfolio. Why did I go to school? And I'm not saying don't go to school, because I did go to school and I went to I got a master's degree. So I went way beyond, why did I go to school? Because schools are full of artists who know a ton about art. And they taught me so many things about art that I don't know if I would have discovered or how long it would have taken me to discover them on my own. Granted, you can read books, you can look at the internet now and get a lot of information without school. But I personally enjoyed going to school. Number one reason is because schools teach you how to think, and they also open up your mind to mentors and people can help you learn. So there is still, in my opinion, a great benefit to school. You don't have to go to school because it's all about the portfolio, but I still want to plug school because there's so many awesome things and people that you can meet and mind-opening experiences that you can have if you go to school. So
That is
that's
some
my
incredible
advice.
advice. I love that. I love it that really it's just do what you love to do. If you love to draw, keep drawing, keep getting better at it. Practice and practice and practice. And then go work with others in school, in a job, whatever. Go work with them, get their ideas, because you're never going to become the best artist, the best painter, the best musician, the best architect just by doing it all yourself.
Right.
There's so much value in working with others and learning from each other. And I think that is very valuable. And I love that advice. I think thank you. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Well, that is all the time we have today. Nathan, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us, share your story, share some insights. Hopefully, this will inspire some artists out there in our program that realize they can be very successful, have a great job drawing and learning and growing just like you did. So I appreciate your time, Nathan.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me.